Hi, I'm Mike Edgett. I'm the product marketing director for the US Medium segment here at Sage. And joining me on this session today is going to be Andrea Ansley, who's the senior product manager for Sage 300. So I've got her on board here to answer any questions you may have either during the session or afterwards. But what we're going to focus on during the session today is the trends and the challenges we're seeing as it relates to companies moving to the cloud and why we're starting to see that. So let me pick up a deck here I'd like to share as we're moving forward. So like I said, what we're going to do is focus on moving to the cloud. I want to spend a little time reviewing the trends and the market research, not only that is in the market, but actually some that we've conducted or sponsored in this whole area of where technology is going, especially as it relates to digital transformation and the move to the cloud. And then I'm going to share a little bit about how Sage has been working with a number of our business partners to create a path to the cloud for our existing Sage customers, specifically those customers, Sage 300 customers, and actually also Sage 100 customers, and also how those also can be utilized for new customers that are actually interested in moving to the cloud. And hopefully you'll come away with this not only with a good understanding of why companies are doing this, but actually some better understanding of why this might be important to you. So what is going on in the marketplace that makes this something that companies of all sizes and of all types are deciding is the reason they want to go to the cloud? And also hopefully give you some ideas of, what would those next steps be for you if you wanted to start that digital transformation journey. So let me dive into a couple of studies that are out there. So as I mentioned, we've done a few studies. This is actually a couple stats from a recent study that we released in April. It was based on some work that was done in the February-March timeframe, excuse me, by a company called Lewis Research. And it's a report called 2021 Return to Growth Outlook. And actually, I believe if you go on our website, you can actually see this in this entire the entire report on this article. Will go into a lot of the details we see as it relates to what's going on in 2021 in the sense of how we see the economy coming back, how we see technology playing a role in that. And actually, that's what some of this talks about. So if you see on the right side, there's this stat here about more than 1 in 3 businesses say their digital transformation plans have accelerated by 3 to 4 years due to COVID-19. Well, the fact of the matter is, if you dive a little bit more into the stats that we have and the details that we provide in that study, it actually talks about the fact that 81% state that they've accelerated their digital transformation plans due to COVID. That's a huge number. 81% are basically saying we need to take a new look at our whole way we're going to market from a digital transformation perspective. We have to look at how we're going to embrace digital technologies to help us grow our business. And so it's just 38% that said it impacted them by 3 to 4 years, but over 80% said that this had an impact on how they're doing the business and having them re-looking at how they're tackling this within their environment. The other thing that was an interesting claim in here is there was a large number, I believe it was 27%, that claimed that cloud-based accounting software was their saving grace. In other words, they really realized that the only way they were able to keep their business afloat and keep their business thriving in these very uncertain times was having that cloud-based accounting software. And we'll talk a little bit here in a few minutes about why that's true and the value that companies see by being in the cloud. So, so what does that really mean as we're moving into the new year? Well, 75% of financial decision makers express high level of confidence they're going to return to growth this year, but it's going to require some investment. And you see that upper left-hand corner, 47% of finance leaders say technology investment is one of the key pillars for their growth. So they're actually recognizing that it's more than just, the world's coming back to normal and I'm going to be able to see my business grow in the areas that we'd already put together from a business plan perspective. Those are still areas that are going to be successful. It's more than that. They realize they need to change some of the way they're investing. As a matter of fact, 38% stated that they believe technology is going to be the single greatest positive impact on their business. So they're recognizing that without making the investment in technology, the company's really not going to have the growth trajectory that they need it to have. because they've recognized that technology is the foundation for a lot of the success of their business, especially in the last year or so. And they actually think that's going to continue to be true as we move forward. So, like I said, this is a great report. I would strongly suggest if you're interested in learning a little bit more of some of the outcome that we saw on this study, hop on the website and you'll be able to find that information there. But I think that one other fact that was interesting in that they said that was 79% indicated the CFO will have a more influence on the direction of the business in 2021. And frankly, it really isn't surprising to us because it's a trend that we're seeing and we've been seeing for quite a while. Because regardless of the industry, the one role we've been continuing to see change in is that of the CFO. And so this is a representation we have with this. You know, it used to be, you know, the CFO or Finance 1.0, CFO 1.0. He really was, you know, the historian, kind of what happened. So they did the results every month or every quarter, every year. And they told you, hey, here's what happened. Here's the money we made or didn't make. Well, that's really changed. So we went into more of a phase of where you had the CFO 2.0 or Finance 2.0, which was much more into why did it happen. And this is where the CFO becomes more like a real-time analyst. So you get more opportunities to get into some real-time dashboards and want to have a better understanding of advanced financial management and business intelligence tools, all to help them get a better understanding of why did something happen. And overall, that helps provide some increased efficiency by the ability to analyze the data in present time. But what's really evolving now is more into what we're really referring to as the CFO 3.0 or Finance 3.0, which is more, the visionary of, what will happen, what should we do? And as I mentioned, there's a large percent of CFOs that are expected to have a larger influence on the direction of their business in 2021. And that's really a reflection of the expectation that companies have that the CFO plays a much more visionary role in their business. And so what that actually does is gets us into a whole change in the way companies look at their business. If you look at that graphic on the right side, where we really talk more about the intelligent organization, which is powered by an intelligent GL, an intelligent general ledger, where the company is able to take all those inputs, whether it's be from budgeting and planning and finance and people, and in turn some more advanced analytics to help them have a better sense of not only what has happened, but what will happen and how can we best react. So it enables a company to be much more proactive to what's going on in their business, much more proactive into what they need to do. And this really is a true reflection of how we're looking at our business. And it's really true across our businesses and reflected in a recent survey that we did with a number of our Sage 300 and Sage 100 customers. So I know this is probably a little hard to read. It's kind of a busy graph here. But what this is this is the result of, I believe it was a couple hundred Sage 100 and Sage 300 customers around the globe. And we wanted to get some idea of, what were the high priority areas for them over the next year. See, there was kind of a couple questions here. One was, which of the following areas are the highest priority for their business, which is really what you see along the bottom axis. And the other was, which of the areas do you either already have or are you planning to implement or need help implementing in the next year or so? And that's kind of more so what's on this vertical axis. But what you see those attributes up in the upper right-hand corner really are those things that are of high priority and are those things that companies are planning to implement. Things such as data and analytics, secure remote access, and data sharing. Not surprisingly, similar to secure remote access, we have things like hosting providers and moving operations to the cloud, which you see in the upper left-hand corner of this deck, which also is not surprising. They kind of all go to get hand in hand, which is the idea of having this available remotely, looking at the value of a cloud deployment, and that's what we're seeing companies doing more and more in the standpoint of where they want to invest. But don't overlook the ideas of data and analytics and data sharing. Data sharing kind of goes across both those aspects of having, a remote access. So a lot of companies or a lot of individuals can look at their data within their business, but also in fact, that companies are wanting to continue to invest in new data and analytics tools because they recognize, as I alluded to on the previous slide, whether it's the CFO or any player within an organization, they want to have greater visibility into what has happened and what looks like it's going to happen. And as I think was mentioned in an earlier session by Andrea, we've been doing more and more investment in new areas in data and analytics. So we've been rolling out new solutions to provide customers more options as it relates to data and analytics tools, because we recognize that business insight and analytics is really key, but also we're recognizing that all these solutions are much more positively received when we make those available as a cloud solution. So they're much more easier to deploy and much more readily accessible. But the other area, like I said, that we're really seeing the most is the real move towards the cloud. And so I guess the next question that really becomes asked often is, okay, so why will they make the move? Well, one of them is because, frankly, they can. So you're starting to see higher budgets of companies having more money to spend. So we said, like I said, in that survey that we just did with the 100 and 300 customers around the globe, 36% expect to see their IT budgets increase, which probably is one of the higher numbers I think we've seen in a while. And the reason for that is back to what we talked about earlier, which is the fact that companies are seeing a need and a value behind having an investment in their IT infrastructure and making sure they're investing in solutions that are available anywhere, anytime, but also give them that insight they need to run their business. So this increase in their IT budgets is frankly across the portfolio of solutions they might want to bring into their business. But you can look at the key areas, the highest priorities, especially for our BMS customers, in other words, our Sage 100 and 300 customers, are in the areas of security, remote access, and data sharing, which is actually exactly the same thing as I just showed you on the previous slide. Security is really, really big, and I think companies are recognizing, we hear about security breaches all the time. It seems like it's an unfortunate storyline that appears on a regular basis. And so some companies are recognizing that the best way to have security is to make sure they're putting themselves in an environment where they're working with a trusted advisor who can provide that level of security. There's often been a misconception that cloud deployments are less secure. Well, the fact of the matter is even on-premise deployments nowadays usually always have some sort of remote accessibility. And frankly, the security behind many of those deployments is much less than is what you'll find in some of the market-leading cloud providers, which is why you're seeing more and more companies recognize the value of moving to that. And like I said, they're also wanting remote access. So while there is some of that available regardless of how you may deploy your solution, obviously a solution that's deployed in the cloud is going to provide that. And then data sharing, because of the fact that you want to be able to share that information across your business, and in some cases, maybe even outside of your business, depending on the type of business you're running. So you can share information on what your demand are, what your supply requirements are, those kind of things that we've been doing a better job at communicating with customers and or vendors. So all of these are the reason we're starting to see companies take a bigger jump towards the cloud. And I guess this last quote that I want to give you from Accenture is probably a great example of this, in that they make the comment, I can't remember when in 2020 this report came out from them, but they talk about the fact that cloud is the urgent business imperative, and that COVID-19 really did create an unprecedented wake-up call. So they're seeing that organizations really everywhere have had a very powerful and direct reminder of the importance of systems resilience, agility, adaptability, and scalability. In other words, I've been working in the areas of cloud across ERP and BMS solutions, and frankly, IT solutions as a whole, for many, many, many years. And we've slowly seen year after year a growth in the demand for cloud, a growth in the interest in cloud, but it's just been that. It's been a slowly steady growth year after year until the last 12 to 18 months. And then we've seen the demand and the interest in cloud just go through the roof. And that has been because companies have recognized that there's more to this than just another way to deploy your solution. There's a number of additional benefits and value to having a cloud solution that many people didn't really recognize before. They may have heard about it. They may have heard references to why you would want to go down the path of the cloud, but they didn't really understand it completely, unfortunately, until we all had to experience what we've experienced recently. So let me talk a little bit about what, from a customer's perspective, that we're in a company's perspective, we find is usually the key reasons and values that companies find of moving to the cloud. Well, the first is one I touched on briefly already, which is security. And if you saw, that was one of the highest, or was the highest requirement when you looked at where a lot of our current 100 and 300 customers are focused. They're focused on wanting to know that they've got that level of security that they can feel comfortable with their business. And they only can do that if you really depend on the experience and investment of really one of the leading providers to protect your data. And don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to imply that, you know, a smaller player or a regional player can't provide levels of security. They certainly can, and many of them do, and they do it very well. So I don't want that to be misunderstood. But the point is, you do want to make sure, regardless of whatever player you're looking at from a cloud service provider, you're dealing with one that really is committed and is spending the time, energy, and expense to maintain a secure environment. Secondly is cost effective. Now, cost effective is, many times that's misinterpreted. People say, oh, I'm going to move to the cloud because it's going to save me money. Well, in many cases, it will save you money. In most cases, we believe it saves companies money. But the other thing, it also gets rid of some of the unpredictability of cost. So you've got not only cost effective, it's really cost predictive. So you have a better understanding of what your cost is going to be. And down the road, it helps you to minimize the hassle and unexpected expenses that are often associated with managing your own IT infrastructure. So a lot of companies have recognized that I don't really want to spend my time and energy managing my IT infrastructure. I'd rather have my IT resources working on other things within the business, have them doing things that can help make the company more productive versus spending time just managing hardware. So that's why you're seeing more and more companies deciding that there's better ways for me to be spending my internal IT resources than managing all of this on my own. The other area is flexibility and scalability, and that's probably one of the other areas that's really been very prevalent during these times, is the fact that companies want that greater flexibility and scalability. So they want to be able to add new capabilities and new users as the business may grow, as a business needs change. If you look at all the changes in a lot of companies over the last year or so, think about the changes and requirements that companies have from a capabilities requirement. Maybe their business has grown based on the type of business they were in, so they needed to quickly add new users and new users within their business. In some cases, maybe their business has shrunk and they actually want to cut back on the number of users. But also they may have gone into new business models that they never saw themselves going into, maybe a big growth in e-commerce. So they had to quickly look at ways to add an e-commerce capability within their current infrastructure. It's much easier to do when they're doing that in a cloud environment. They don't need to be able to go into their office and get that set up as much. They can work with their infrastructure provider to get those capabilities added on. So that kind of scalability, that flexibility within what you're able to offer is much greater when you're looking at something that's in a cloud deployment than, frankly, something that's on-premise that you're managing on a day-to-day basis. And finally is the area of reliability. You want to minimize that risk of interruptions to running the business due to downtime from unexpected outages. A cloud deployment, if you look at most of the cloud deployments out there, the cloud providers that are out there, they're going to provide that level of availability that you're not necessarily going to see anywhere else, because you've got a lot of the built-in redundancies and those kind of capabilities that you need to know that your solution is always going to be available. And you can actually work with the various providers to make sure you're getting what you specifically need. But it is an area that companies need to look at and understand exactly what the added value is going to be to this. I think companies get used to the fact that, system goes down periodically, we just work around it. They don't realize that actually they can have a much better experience by going to a cloud environment where they do not have those kind of downtimes that maybe they're much more prevalent than they even are necessarily recognizing today. So what have we really done? Well, we like I mentioned early on, we've been working with a number of business partners to figure out how do we offer a solution in the cloud for our Sage 100 and Sage 300 customers. Now, this isn't the only option, and I'll talk about that in a few minutes, but it is the primary way that we're seeing many of our business partners go to market. And what we've done is we've worked with them to, one, give you an option to continue to utilize your Sage 300 solution. So it's basically a solution you're familiar with. It's kind of, but in turn also, because it's in a cloud deployment, you're going to have something that's not only trusted, but actually a solution that should be able to stay more up to date than maybe what you've had in the past. So you'll be on the more recent release. But the beauty of this is now you get to move to the cloud, but you don't have to do any retraining of your personnel, because you're basically using the same solution you've always used. So when we look at what we're moving our Sage 300 solution to the cloud, it's not a different code base, it's not a different product, it's the same product. So it's just now available in the cloud. The only thing that may be different is if you're many releases behind, many versions behind, when you make your move to the cloud, we'll get you to the most current version when you make that move. But the other thing, we've also partnered with Azure, Microsoft Azure, to have this solution that actually is a hosting provider that actually provides that top tier confidentiality, integrity, and availability that I mentioned on the previous slide is so critical to a cloud deployment. And this will in turn allow you to achieve better business results, because you're going to get rid of those unexpected downtimes. You're going to be able to have a much better predictability of your expenses, those kind of core requirements that a cloud solution will provide you that you don't have today. But at the end of the day, we recognize that every customer has unique needs, and that's frankly the value that our business partners bring to the story, which is this allows customers to still have those unique deployments, so they can have that personalization that your business partner actually provides for you. So it's a much more personalized solution than maybe if you've looked at other cloud solutions that are out there. They are pretty vanilla. This is what you get, and take it or leave it. And what we understand is the fact that companies need to have the greater flexibility than maybe what that would provide them. So this gives you a cost-effective cloud deployment, but it's available through your business partner that you've learned can actually help you to have exactly what you need to run your business most effectively. So one of the other questions, though, is people always ask is, okay, so why are we working with Azure? So we work with Microsoft Azure because, well, one, they're a leader. According, you see some stats here that are actually coming from Microsoft themselves. So you can go back onto their website and get some greater detail on this if you'd like. Frankly, if you just want to learn more about Azure anyways, they've got a lot of great resources on their website. We don't try to keep up with them all and post them on ours. That's not what we'd want to do. We would strongly encourage you to go to Microsoft's website and learn more about it. But for example, 95% of Fortune 500 companies are using Azure. They are truly extremely reliable. If you look at the components within their offer, they range anywhere from 95 to 99.9% availability. But not only is it where they are today, it's actually also a story about where are they going in the future? Where are they investing? So they're continuing to invest in technology and to bring you both the latest technology, but also to focus a lot in the areas of compliance and security. So they're claiming to be spending $1 billion each year to upgrade and secure their infrastructure. They're continuing to invest and put their development into the platform. But the nice thing about this, at the end of the day, it is a very open and flexible cloud computing platform. So like I said, if you'd like to learn more, certainly get on their site, and there's sessions you can go through and get a deeper dive on Azure, or frankly, your business partners can also help you on that. But the other reason we've done this is, frankly, Sage has got a long relationship with Microsoft. So we've worked with Microsoft in the past. We've got some other versions of Sage products that are hosted on Azure that we've been managing. So we understand what the solution is and what the value is of this long-term relationship with Microsoft. We recognize the value of the offer that they bring to market. But I do, like I said earlier on, I don't want you to think this is the only option on the table, but this is the primary way we're going to market. But that doesn't mean we don't support other hosting providers. And so we have at times worked with other other hosting providers. We even have some business partners that have their own hosting providers out there or hosting capabilities themselves. So this is still an option for those who may have a different path they want to take. But the primary path forward that we are taking, and the primary path forward that many of our business partners are taking, is with this Azure relationship. And so what the thing is to keep in mind is this is the same product. It's just a simpler offer. So like I said earlier, this is not a different product. Your Sage 300 product is your Sage 300 product. The only thing we've done is we've simplified the offer. In the past, we had like 9 different bundled options between bundles of what features and functionalities you got versus security options you got. And then we had 4 different pricing tiers based on the size of your business. And so the smaller companies got stuck with a larger bill than the larger companies. We got rid of all that, and we made it much simpler. And we basically, I'd say here, we got 4 bundled options. In many ways, it's really just 3, but because at the end of the day, we have 2 core options. There's an option of a financials package, and there's an option of a financials and operations package. And then on top of that, you can either choose to go with the standard offer that we have from a services perspective, or you can complement that with a more premium services offer if you want to. It's just one price per user, regardless of the size of the business. We won't go into all the technical details behind this, but we've been doing this for a number of years. So we've made some tooling available to the partners that actually helps them to be able to deploy the solution quickly onto Azure, and also be able to maintain it easily over time, so that they continue to be able to help you as you want to make changes. So it really is a flexible partner managed service that supports, like I mentioned earlier, not only just the core product out of the gate, but also any customizations, as well as your ISVs. So I want you to understand that, and I think Andrea may have touched on this briefly earlier when she was talking about this in her session, is that we still do have all the ISVs that are out. So ultimately what this allows you to do is it leverages the products you know, but then in turn lets you take advantages of the cloud. So that, to me, is the fundamentals. There's a lot more information about this. Strongly suggest that you talk to your business partner, your contact to your business partner, to understand exactly how you can utilize this. So with that, I appreciate having the opportunity to talk to you all. Have a great day.